if a young talent comes here, I'm sure that talent will find an opportunity to develop that particular talent. Once you enter, you can find your way and explore your talents in the directions you want to go.
Hi, my name is Schumacher. I'm the principal of Zaha Hadid Architects. Welcome here at our studio. This is actually the gallery of Zaha Hadid Architects, one of two buildings here in London. I started in London with Zaha in 1988, so that's nearly or over 30 years ago now. I was still a student, and gradually over the decades, but actually only in the last 10-15 years, we developed into this larger global design and architecture firm with over 400 people. After high school, I first went into philosophy. That was not meant necessarily as a profession, but as an urge to understand better the world and question this kind of pretense or challenge that there should be people who have this kind of superior insight and wisdom, the philosophers, and I had to know what this is, and I did learn about and find out and penetrated that. And then I, in fact, shifted into architecture. Zaha Hadid was for me a natural choice at the time. She was very hot on the scene, not very known globally, but in the academic world, through some of her competition wins, the beauty of her drawings. As I said, I met her. This wasn't Zaha Hadid Architects at the time, it was just a small studio. She just had opened her professional studio. Before that, she was working with students from home at the school. And so I just joined a very small team. And it was a natural extension of my studies. So it was just an intuitive choice, but I think I made the right choice.
My name is Lukaracana. I'm a board director of Zaha Hadid Architects, which, as you will know, is one of the global practice in the field of architecture, infrastructure, urban design. And we work globally on a range of projects which span from private to public commission, cultural, sport, and so on. I've been in this company for a long time. Now it will be 20 years. When I started, we were all sitting here with Zaha in the small studio we are now. It's called Studio 9, and we were around 14 people. Speaking of Maxi, actually I can tell quite a lot because it's been my first project. I was a very young graduate here, and we won that. It was a competition. And for us, we were quite a small office at that time. That was the biggest commission we had. And as a young Italian architect, I was immediately placed in a position of, if you want, responsibility, but as well great opportunity, because it's a city where I study, and the culture I know. So it became quite an enclosed block within the Flaminio district. It was all gated. So the idea when we started to design with Zaha was really how we can break this, unlock this part of the city and make it part of a larger urban life. How we can incorporate some of the existing building on site. The brief was actually gave us the freedom either to demolish everything and to do a completely new building or to retain part of it. And as well how to create a space which is a public area which become part as well of the community. But mostly we designed the project having in mind how people will explore it. we imagine like as an experience, discovery. So I think we're very pleased with the result, and we know that the project, which I visit every time I go back to Rome, has become a public square for the area. There is a lot of people every day. In the morning you can see a group of let's say pensioners sitting down the street, their coffee discussion. In the afternoon there's a lot of kids, there's many activity at night. I think that's the best, let's say, result a designer can hope from a project. They become a lived part of the city, maybe a very important piece of contemporary architecture, but as well not a dead building. It's something which is very much lived and part of the culture of the city.
And later on, throughout the 2000s, we actually were part of this fantastic boom period in real estate, which was taking off across Europe, but also in the Middle East, Dubai, for instance, in early projects in China. So the mid-2000s, we really mushroomed from a small studio into a very large global firm within a very few years, and that was an exhilarating process. And since we've matured a lot, but the size of the firm has been established by 2006, 2007. Now we're 10 years older and more mature, we're much more well organized, but that was an exhilarating takeoff period.
The office now it's around 450 people, which is for an architectural office is quite a big size. And to add to this, we have several locations, obviously London, but as well we have office in Beijing, in Hong Kong, in Dubai, Mexico City, New York. And our projects are really globally distributed from all continents, from Australia to North America.
So as we were growing and we had larger projects, we had to build, of course, teams, collaborative teams, also with engineering firms. We allow many authors to participate in the exploration and finding of forms, of innovations. That's why we are quite different from other master architects. I think that's why we could proliferate our work, why we could be more diverse in our solutions than most of our competitors, because it's very much a bottom-up, a collegial process where people are inspired by the general tendency, the principles of parametricism, but each designer can work with these principles and create original new work which fits an overall oeuvre. So in this sense it's very collaborative, but also it has a very strong DNA and leadership.
I'm Sarah Sheikh Akbari and joined the company in 2007, so almost 13 years now. I think the collaborative way of working is something that still exists in the company, and we have a team of very passionate architects and designers, and that sort of way of working and the collaborative approach is consistent in the company. We won the competition in 2013 to design BIA, which is a headquarter building for a waste management company based in the UAE. The project has been inspired by the desert landscape and has been designed as an area of dunes which seamlessly merge with their surrounding. The geometry and the building itself has been designed as a series of intersecting dunes which give the opportunity to maximize natural daylight while limiting harsh sunlight inside the building. These are all the area of dunes surrounding the building, which are all merging with the surrounding landscape. We have the plants, which are all regional plants, selected from the nurseries in the region, which are all around the building, and we try to kind of create a nicer environment towards the staff area to allow people to wander around the landscape during nicer months of the year, and we keep this side of the building, which is through the access to the main road, more open to give a view towards the building from the highway and the motorway and to passerbys. It is a very collaborative approach between the teams. So we work on design elements, on coordination elements, and then collaboratively externally as well with our consultants, later stages subcontractors. We've been working closely together. We've been working closely with Zaha. So that spirit and that way of working has been established in the company's DNA, and we continue to do a lot of successful projects worldwide and design and deliver them basically from the beginning and supervise them till the final completion.
My name is Kawa Ho. I work at Zaha Hadid Architects. I'm the head of interior architecture here. I think Zaha Studio was a continuity of how we were taught at the Architecture Association. So it was almost like, you know, continuing teaching. And I know that teaching for her was very, very valuable. And so it was working in a very studio collaborative way. And that just easily translated from school to the studio. Zaha was never a professor or teacher in the didactic sense. You know, she never came to class and said, these are the 6 points of architecture that we have to follow, tick, tick, tick. You know, you have to do those things. It was very much about experimenting and learning. She enabled the process for self-discovery, yeah? Because I think she recognized that you couldn't really push people to do what they couldn't do or what they weren't interested in. But what she could do was to, build your talent, what you're interested in, and push that further so that then you had this self-discovery within yourself that, oh my God, that I can do these things. So it was never really explicit, but I think in the way her vision and in the way she encouraged her students, and the way we loved her work, it was always this optimism, in her architecture.
Hi, I'm Bidisha. I've been working at Zaha Hadid Architects for almost 15 years, and I'm currently a senior associate here. Unlike a lot of other offices, I think what's quite special about Zaha Hadid Architects is that we still are quite hands-on and we work like a larger studio. So even the youngest architectural assistant is encouraged to be part of the meetings and the design sessions.
That there's always something that you can do better. That you have to push yourself forward to do something that perhaps has not been done before. I think for her especially, it was not resting on your laurels, I mean, it's quite easy to say, okay, we've designed this before, and then we're going to repeat that. I think she was always trying to push us to do something more. I've seen this before, so, okay, let's see, what is the unexpected. And that was, I think even in when she was teaching in school, it was always this sense of discovering, coming up with a new brief, being inventive.
So she wanted, and the idea was that everything that we create maintains, has strong idea. That sort of group that we created has allowed us to have a complete continuation and testing what worked, what didn't work, what failed, what successful. How can we create a new line of research and studies that then end up becoming our projects? Yes, it was very interesting when we started working on the Beijing Airport, because at that time we have never done an airport of this size. We have only done a small terminal. So it became that we started testing ideas, multiple. I think we were doing daily around 10 different concepts. So it was through that sort of pushing the innovation and not wanting to do anything that has been done before, that we force ourselves, and using our sort of naiveness at that time to create something special. So the idea was really forming how we could create these concepts into how people will arrive. In a big airport, you don't want to get lost. You want to feel that know where you are, know where you're going. So we use the idea of light as a way of moving through the airport. The idea for the airport became quite simple. So it was based on we had a central axis that we was crossing all across the terminal. From that, we defined a clear center. We want to bring everyone together. So from that, we created these linear axes that were moving always out of that center. Right? So the idea was that people come in here, becomes that the orientation space, and then they can move along this axis, which we then created a series of elegant roofs that emerge from that center, that start defining that sort of radial aspects of that space. And then towards the end, we create another surprise element where we enlarge these conditions further. We open them up and we create an unexpected courtyard so people can arrive and then they can actually go out of the airport into this new space.
I was very much a drawing person and loved sketching. As a teenager, I actually developed the skill, self-taught, to draw and paint. When I came to Zaha, that accelerated again. I got the opportunity to do a lot of visual exploration of sketches, of different vistas and walkthroughs through the buildings. She wanted everything very three-dimensional, with a lot of plasticity. In the first few years, we brought computers into the office as well. And so we had the symbiosis of sketching and drafting and drawing and more computational exploration, which is a very natural continuation. As we developed from a small studio, we had a number of times where we get larger projects through competition wins. We're growing and shrinking and growing and shrinking, and then about 20 years ago, at the late 90s, we made a series of breakthrough projects. And so we could start to hire more senior people, to bring in more of our students and develop a larger firm which is organized in clusters. And only recently we have added specialist departments, like we have a product design department, an interior architecture department, but also we have, what's very important for us, a research group, computational design.
So we started to open what we call center of excellence or center of expertise within the office to respond to specific problem or as well to add some value to our project.
We have recently opened a virtual reality lab inside Zaha Hadid Architects. This has multiple potentials. Of course, there's simulating the experience with one more level of immersive impactfulness for clients, for ourselves as designers, but also we can imagine to design cyberspace.
So my name is Helmut Kinsler. I work at Zaha Hadid Architects. I've been a member of the team for the last over 20 years. I joined as a design and as an architect. But 5 years ago, we launched our VR department. It was the time when the technology became available. So virtual reality, in our understanding, involves anything that is not the physical real, as in the built physical real part of our process. So we're looking at it also in terms of applying it not only for visualization and descriptions to our stakeholders and our partners, but also as part of a design tool. That's the larger intention. The impact is imminent. I mean, you are immersed as a person in full scale, and you have access to 3 dimensions and also dynamic content. So this has offered us an enormous addition to our current toolset, where we are looking at 2D projection of spatial designs. So this is clear, and it has been immediate in terms of the impact. Virtual reality is not only helping us overcome design problems and friction and delays latency within our current design development. But I think I would take it even a step further. I think we are looking at potentially a completely new understanding of space. Project Coral was initiated coming from a sort of a conceptual research that we called ontological research, understanding virtual reality in its specificity and its difference to physical reality, involving ideas of collaborative design agency and the big immersive space that would allow us to create a very specific design approach. You can generate individual components, and we had in the end about 2,500 visitors inside the design space, leaving 20,000 components inside the space. And it is a sort of accumulative, collective sculpture, effectively, that came out of it. And it just showed us how much potential is possible. And given the whole technological pipeline that we need in order to generate that complexity. Project Coral was concluded in March this year in Mexico City, and with our partner Hewlett-Packard we 3D printed a snapshot and manifested virtual reality back into physical reality, which was an exciting sort of cycle that we managed to complete.
I want to mention one more research area, which is the most recent area where we investing in simulating life processes within building. So we're not only looking at the artifact, the built form, but we're looking at the life process that is shaped, hosted and unfolds within these forms. And for that we built agent-based models, so we can simulate all the users and people who are moving around, who are gathering, meeting, working, communicating in those spaces. And we can also start to quantify and research which solutions are more conducive to effective social processes in spaces. So that's another research department we've developed within the code group.
We started with what is called code group, which is basically a computational analysis group, which is around 15 people. With the code, we use mathematician, engineer, architect, or other professional to use numerical tools to develop and solve problems, but as well help the design process.
Hi, my name is Shajay. I co-founded the Zaha Hadid Computational Design Group, which is a kind of practice-based research group. Zaha Code as a group was founded with a kind of open mandate to explore emerging technologies, both in design and also in construction. The work we do in that is partially related to making available certain new technologies for use within projects. A lot of our work is in this kind of playful, initially playful domain, like from geometry related or computer graphics related. Subsequently, it becomes very much aligned with like solving real world problems, like optimizing a facade for cost or constructability, or how to tile the facade, and also use machines to produce those tiles. One of the ways that like our group designs, or like the kind of design procedures that we try to follow, is influenced a lot by like the world of computer animation, because we think it's a very similar industry in the sense that there is a storytelling aspect. So there's an intimate relationship between designers and algorithms, or designers and computers, or designers and machines that will produce the architecture. If you look at like a movie like Frozen or something, most often like we will be focusing on, as viewers, on what the character is saying and doing and what the expressions are, but behind the scenes is like several PhDs worth of mathematics or physics or even computer graphics research, how to simulate the snow, how to simulate the hair, and like lighting and so on. So that's how we feel that like our architecture is somewhat like that. Like there's a storytelling aspect, meaning that's what the users care about, their experience, how they can navigate through spaces, or do they get lost, or their intimate spaces, their open spaces, and so on.
So we have these explorative research groups which hopefully will deliver executable and service opportunities in the next 10, 20 years for us.
So I think parametric design is something that we've been trying to work and incorporate as a design thinking in a way. So that allows us that we work with multiple parameters, right? Which is what that means. So we incorporate every aspect of design into a more intelligent way of working, right? So all of these conditions are matching into from software to design thinking, right? So we're not thinking in isolation of roof, structure, ground, interior design, that we embed all of these parameters into the same softwares, into the same designs.
Parametricism, for example, tries to argue that the designs that we make, or anyone following that theoretical discourse, that like the way things look are a trade-off between multiple parameters that influence the generation, and cost is one. It could be social impact, so there could be physical parameters, there could be social parameters. So the main argumentation for parametricism is that like the job of the architect is to design spaces for people's activities and their interactions.
Parametricism is in that sense connected, that all our designs are influenced by these generative and algorithmic design-driven tools that we are developing in-house. So we are also looking at connecting it within the interface. So if we are saying we're controlling design within VR as a human-machine interface, then clearly we need to have also algorithmic and generative design aspects coming from the machine logic inside VR. So that's our clear ambitions. Project Coral, in that sense, tried to influence the placement of the components with a generative design aspect, obviously very simplified, but clearly the ambition is to merge all those research aspects inside the new design domain. Yeah.
I was talking about parametricism for quite a number of years, which was born from this interest in fluidity and variation, adaptive capacity of our forms through computational design. The latest stage of parametricism I call Tectonism, because it is now focused more on engineering logics and fabrication logics and giving more rigor to those forms, more rationality and rigor. And you can see the difference. And it also means that the downstream execution of these projects are more pre-rationalized, more seamless, more cost-effective, and more optimized. So that's the latest stage of parametricism, Tectonism, and we rely very much on the computational research. At this contemporary era, I think we have large projects, we need to be fast, we need to be precise. Compared to 30 years ago, I think this is the era of large firms with respect to many iconic projects. We need to be very professional, we need to be, as I said, sure about what we're doing. That's why the small studio has less chance to come through with respect to the iconic projects. So my ambition with Zaha Hadid Architects for the future is to become that global brand and grow further. So we are already addressing many different project types. So I would love to grow the firm, and I'm also interested in collaborating with younger firms, with younger talents, to give them our organizational support and marry their research with our capacity to deliver. So I'm working on that, a network organization. So I think we can become a real challenger on, or for instance, to fosters and partners who are still at this time 2 or 3 times bigger, and I want to become a bigger firm, leading a larger firm, a global firm, because urbanization continues. China is a massive market where we're active, India is coming on, Africa is developing. Maybe Europe is a bit sleepier, but I also hope that Europe will come out of its slumber and semi-paralysis and become more active. And you find in Europe also urbanization is continuing in terms of small towns and villages are emptying out into the cities. So I want to be part of that and want to be Zaha Hadid Architects to become that fantastic global firm which is always innovative but also can take on these larger scale projects. So we're working on urbanism as well, city development. Yeah, that's the ambition. So not kind of scaling down or being, let's say, a refined artist, but be much more somebody who is an impactful entrepreneur in the space of urban development and architecture. In terms of the talent of the world coming to London, coming to join us, we have so many groups, projects, maybe over 100 simultaneous projects at any one time, in all scales, in all continents, at all stages of development. So if a young talent comes here, I'm sure that talent will find an opportunity to develop that particular talent and skills. So I think that's the advantage of larger groups, that once you enter, you can find your way and explore your talents in the directions you want to go.